Then for a long time he stood as one, graven of stone, and the two were alone, silent before the doors of Nargothrond. And Glaurung spoke again, taunting Húrin, and he said, "Evil have been thy ways, son of Húrin, thankless fosterling, outlaw, slayer of thy friend, thief of love, usurper of Nargothrond, captain foolhardy, and deserter of thy kin. As thralls thy mother and thy sister live in Dorloman, in misery and want. Thou art arrayed as a prince, but they go in rags, and for thee they yearn. But thou carest not for that. Glad may thy father be to learn that he hath such a son, as learn he shall." And Túrin, being under the spell of Glaurung, hearkened to his words. Then suddenly Glaurung withdrew his glance and waited, and Túrin stirred slowly, as one waking from a hideous dream. Then Túrin, drawing back his sword, stabbed at the dragon's eyes, and Glaurung, coiling back swiftly, towered above him and said, "Nay, at least thou art valiant, beyond all whom I've met. And thy lie who say that we of our part do not honor the valor of foes. See now, I offer thee freedom. Go to thy kin if thou canst. Get thee gone." Then Túrin, being yet bemused by the eyes of the dragon, believed the words of Glaurung, and turning away, he sped over the bridge. But as he went, Glaurung spoke behind him, saying in a fell voice, "Haste thee now, son of Húrin, to Dorloman, and if thou tarry for Findalas, then never shalt thou see Morrowind thy mother and Nienor thy sister, and they will curse thee."
Hey, welcome to episode 12 of Keep on Tolkien.
Welcome back, guys. That was a bit of a long one, but we really wanted to let you know quite how we left off at the last episode.
Right. Yeah, it left off in a sad place.
Yeah, it's not good. We've been drinking now for a good portion of the night,
Yeah.
a few hours, just getting ready for this. We're recording these two parts back to back, if you didn't know. And there's a reason we're drinking. It's been pretty sad, and it's about to get even more sad.
We did kill that tequila between us all.
We did. We killed a bottle of tequila,
Killed a bottle of
and
tequila
a 12-pack.
and almost a case of Strongbow.
So, episode 12, Túrin Turambar. So when we left off, we left Túrin after a tragic sacking of the Noldorian kingdom of Nargothrond.
Nargothrond is fallen.
Mm-hmm. And it's not good.
And so at the fall of Nargothrond, Túrin comes face to face with Glaurung.
Glaurung the dragon.
And he deceives Túrin into believing that his mother and sister are thralls in Dorloman,
His home country that he came from. Now, in all reality, during this time, Morrowind and his sister Nienor, who he's never met, are not in Dorloman anymore. During this time, they have actually moved.
They've actually made their way to Doriath.
They moved
looking
south.
for Túrin, oddly enough.
Yeah, the events of Túrin hanging out with his outlaw band of folks slaying orcs in the northern portions of Beleriand is actually exactly what gave his mother Morrowind and his never-met sister Nienor. That's what gave them the chance to actually move south. Because before then, the land had been ridden with fighting and orcs and whatnot. But at this point, they were able to move south. So during a lot of these events that we just talked about in the last episode with Túrin, Morrowind and Nienor had actually moved south to Doriath already.
And that was all because of what Túrin was doing with Beleg when they had their land of Bow and Helm. They were clearing the ways. I suppose that was when he was the Black Sword of Nargothrond, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when he was the Black Sword of Nargothrond, he was clearing the ways for for Morwen and Nienor.
Not that he knew that.
Not that he knew that.
At this point, by the deception of Glaurung, he's running back home to Dorloman to save them, but they're not even there. But where are they? So they're back in Dorloman. They're back in Doriath. And by the time they got there, they obviously found that Túrin was not there. They heard a little bit of what happened, and they lived there for a while, not knowing quite where he was. Now, at one point, Morwen gets restless, and she wants to find her son. So she sets out on a bit of an endeavor with Nienor and some elves from Doriath, some Sindarin elves, and they traveled to Nargothrond because they heard about this.
The Black Sword of Nargothrond.
This Black Sword of Nargothrond sounds just like...
Sounds like our boy Túrin.
Sounds like our boy Túrin. That sounds like what he was doing here when he was in Doriath, just over in Nargothrond now. So they head over to Nargothrond. Oh, but not knowing their timing could not have been worse.
They go to they do eventually get to Nargothrond, and they see that it's been sacked, right?
Yeah, they literally arrive at Nargothrond to find Túrin right after the sacking of Nargothrond. So Nargothrond has fallen. The orcs have plundered the place. Glaurung has, completely raided the halls of Nargothrond, and there's a dark vapor that's covering the land. Little did they know, Glaurung saw them coming, and he put up this vapor.
And there's this weird black vapor around, and it's from, spoiler alert, it's from the dragon.
Yeah, dragon saw him coming, and he put up a whole big stinky mist of vapor.
So as Nienor tries to climb to the top of a hill to see through this cloud of vapor, lo and behold, who's up there but Glaurung the dragon?
Yeah, there's an awesome scene where they kind of everyone gets lost in the vapor. She gets separated. Morwen, the mother, gets separated. All the horses kind of go crazy and they all run off. They get separated from the elves. Morwen disappears off into the mist, and Nienor tries to figure out what's going on. She climbs to the top of this hill to see over the mist. And what does she see? Nothing else other than this big black head. Just boom. Just Glaurung is just right there.
Right up in her face.
And at this point, just the way Túrin was entranced at the sacking of Nargothrond, he entrances Nienor as well, just staring right into her eyes. And he basically inflicts on Nienor an amnesia.
Yeah, total mind wipe.
Completely. Like, she doesn't know how to speak. She doesn't know how to do anything. She's completely like a newborn child. And she rips off her clothes and just runs. She doesn't even know what to do.
She just takes off. She
takes off into the forest.
Yeah, and so that's pretty much where... So Morwen is MIA.
Yeah, she's just gone at this point.
Morwen's gone, and
for all we know, she's dead.
And Nienor is crazed and running around, and she's naked and
doesn't know anything. Doesn't even know her own name. She doesn't know anything at all, and she's just crazed running through the forest.
All right, so we're gonna leave you there for a second on that one.
So that's a short version of what's been going on with Morwen and Nienor, the mother and sister, during this point in time.
So we're gonna drop in back on Túrin here. So Túrin is he's finally made his way back to Dorloman. He finds his old home that he grew up in is empty. And he finds out from a servant of his that he was close with when he was a kid. Who his name is Sador, they call him, but he calls him Labadal, which means clubbed foot.
Yeah, this was like a servant, an old friend of Túrin when he was a kid. A little kid.
And he meets up with Túrin, and he says that this lady Iron knows where they've gone.
Yeah. Iron was basically a friend of Túrin's mother.
Right. And she has been wed to Broda, who's like I guess you could say he's like the governor of this new occupied territory.
Yeah, he's one of those evil Easterlings that came and took over, so he's kind of the ruling slave driver guy.
So Túrin basically goes in there, and he's kind of guns blazing, and he grabs Broda by the fucking throat and basically breaks him in half, essentially. I mean, not breaks him in half, but like breaks his body, and then he's done for. And then he kills all the other Easterlings in the room, and he kind of starts this. And he does this because Iron won't tell him where Nienor and Morwen have gone.
Yeah, he's upset.
He's very upset.
Yeah, she's obviously Iron, being kind of forcibly wed to this guy, is kind of hesitant to betray this guy that has enslaved her entire land.
Right.
And so out of rage, Túrin just grabs the guy by the throat and throws him across the room and coincidentally breaks his neck while he's doing it. And I mean, at this point, Aaron knows that she's kind of screwed anyway.
Right, and then this is kind of when the shit hits the fan,
right,
so to speak. The people that have been living in thraldom under the Easterlings, the remainder of the House of Hador.
Yeah, all the men up in Dorloman.
They're basically old and sick because they were the only ones that didn't die in the Nirnaeth.
Mm-hmm.
And they take up arms and they start killing Easterlings too. And there's a little bit of a little revolt there for a second. And some of them actually, Túrin heads out because Iron
finally tells him.
Well, Iron finally tells him, but then you remember what she does?
Oh, Iron burns the house down, doesn't she?
Yeah, she burns the house down with herself inside of it.
Yeah, just to kind of like get rid of all the evidence, and she lets Túrin know that, hey, your family's actually not here. They went to Doriath to find you.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been easier if she said that in the first place, but she didn't. But now there's this whole little rebellion that came up as a result of that. And
what really sucks about it all is this totally unnecessary trip for Túrin to make essentially makes it harder for the House of Hador. Like, they're persecuted more cruelly after Túrin has this little rebellion.
Yeah, they don't ultimately, the rebellion doesn't quite go anywhere.
Right, they don't overthrow the Easterling government or anything like that.
No. It comes to an end, and then they're treated even worse after this, which is just one more thing on Túrin's conscience. So at this point, Túrin doesn't even know what to do. So his next desperate thing to do would be, what can he think of? Try to find Findalas, the last woman that actually cared for him, even though he couldn't commit because she.
Right, he didn't have that same kind of love for her, but I mean, he still didn't hate her.
No. So he, at the very least, he wanted to at least save her life, since he basically condemned her to death by letting the sacking of Nargothrond happen.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes to try to find Findalas. He feels personally accountable for her well-being, and he doesn't quite find her. He picks up an orc trail, and by that time it's too late. He finds out what happened to the prisoners that were taken from Nargothrond, and he follows them to the forest of Brethil, which is actually just outside of Doriath. It's a small portion of the forest that was given to men. And the men there let him know that actually all those slaves had been killed.
Including Finduilas, who had been skewered to a tree with a spear.
Yeah. The nice men of Brethil obviously saw the orcs marching this camp of prisoners north, and they attacked, trying to free them. The orcs killed everyone, though, so there were no prisoners left. Findalas died, and Túrin buried her and just collapsed on the mound that she was buried, and was so sad. I mean, at this point, things are going pretty awful for him. He doesn't know where his family is. He thought he was going to go save his mother and sister. They're gone. He thought he would finally try to go save Findalas, the woman that cared for him, and she's dead. He's pretty much done at this point.
Yeah, and so this mound that she's buried in, they call it, what do they call it? The Mound of Tears or something, right?
Yeah, it's a renowned place. It's pretty sad.
Yeah.
And Túrin respects the place and visits it once in a while. But ultimately he tries to more or less restart his life at this point. I mean, he pretty much figures he's lost everything. So he actually makes camp in Brethil with these men there.
Yeah, lives there for a little while.
He starts living with these guys.
And then he meets Brandir. That's right. He meets Brandir, who's of the House of Haleth, who runs Brethil at this point. Remember, he's the lame.
Yeah. So
Brandir
is a character that basically runs the men of Brethil.
Yeah, and he takes Túrin into his house and heals him up because he's skilled in healing.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Yeah, and so one day during a particularly fierce storm, Túrin's men, after this is long after he's been nursed to health.
He's been living in Brethel for a while now, kind of like how he's moving around this whole time. He's now moved to Brethel. He's been living here a while.
So yeah, during this storm, some of his men found a naked young woman on the mound of Findwheelass's grave, and so they took her in.
This random, naked, weeping woman who couldn't even speak and didn't even know her own name.
Who could that be?
Who could that possibly be in the saddest tragedy tale of all time? Who do you think? Now, at this point, Túrin has also started calling himself by another name. He started calling himself Turambar, which means Master of Doom. Because at this point, he thinks he's had all of his bad luck behind him.
For some reason,
he
Túrin
thought the
thinks
worst is
that
gone.
The worst is behind him. For some reason, he thinks he's mastered the doom.
And now he's like, I'm not going to let this get to me anymore. I'm going to call myself Turambar, Master of Doom. And then he finds this naked woman weeping on the grave of the other woman he tried to save. And he takes her in. She doesn't know anything, doesn't know her name, barely knows how to even speak. Now, after a while, he basically nurses her back to health as well. She becomes more or less reacquainted with society. And he calls her Ninio, Maiden of Tears. Because she literally would cry because she knew nothing at all.
And the thing about Ninio is that she was, especially when they first took her in, she would freak out most of the time. But she was always really calm when Túrin was around.
It's like they had a special connection.
Yeah, it was like they had some kind of connection that they didn't know about. And she was always comforted by Túrin. And she took a liking to Túrin.
So, naturally, after years, he decided to try to marry her. They got along very well. They liked each other quite a bit.
Yeah. So he took her for a wife. Yeah. So he took his Ninio as a wife, not knowing that it was in fact
his sister.
His sister Nienor. Ugh.
Man, and like he thought he had all his bad luck behind him. Mind you, he's never met his sister at this point. He has no idea what she looks like or much of anything about her at all.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he would even cross paths with her is just...
Yeah, he's never met her. Like, he doesn't know what she... Like,
right.
He's never met Nienor at all.
So he takes his sister to wed, and they do so gladly. And actually, they have a brief time of some blissful peace between the two of them.
Yeah, and Túrin actually gives up going to war for a little while. Because she makes him promise.
I can only imagine like this period of time for Húrin. Like,
oh God,
the one time Húrin gets to see like his kids happy, it's because they're married to each other and they don't know it.
Yeah,
like it's like you can't even be happy during the happy parts. Like,
no, it's false happiness. It's never never good enough. It's never good.
Awful.
Yeah, it's real awful, guys. And then, so yeah, she gets him to not go to war for a while, and eventually he has to.
Eventually, there's a problem that comes up.
Yeah, and that problem is Glaurung the dragon, and he's ravaging the countrysides, and he's basically directly posing a threat to Brethil.
Yeah, at a certain point, for whatever reason, Glaurung starts to, years and years later, he goes and has another somewhat of a rampage, and he starts working his way south, straight towards the forest of Brethil, and he's just burning the countryside as he goes. This is an obvious problem, and Túrin, being such the fighter that he is, he knows he has to do something about it. He's still got his black sword. He's got Gorthang, the sword that was made from a meteorite that can cut through iron. He still has the dragon helm of Dorloman. So he's going to try to help deal with it.
So yeah, he's like, all right, I'm going to go kill this dragon. Who's coming with me? And not too many people are keen on that.
Right, he's living with some woodsmen right now. He's not living with the noble elves of Doriath or Nargothrond anymore.
Yeah.
He's just living with some woodsmen. But there are two that stand up and agree to come with him and deal with this dragon.
Yeah, and one of them is called Hunthor. He goes in place of Brandir. He's a kinsman of Brandir, because Brandir should be going, but he's lame. He can't, like, his leg was maimed when he was a child.
So he's quite literally disabled.
Yeah, so he can't. They call him Brandir the lame. Like, he can't really walk even that really well. So Hunthor goes in his place, and then Dorlas, who was actually the first one. He's the one that found Túrin. I totally forgot about that. Dorlas is the one that found Túrin on the Mound of Tears and brought him back to Brethil. So Dorlas also says that he'll come with.
Now, on the way of these three men going to intercept the dragon, Dorlas also happens to be a bit of a coward, and somewhere along the way, he abandons Túrin and Hunthor. I believe they try to go down into a crevice of the river, right?
Right. They figure the dragon's gonna pass over this crevice in the river.
Right. There's a river between the edge of the forest and basically the open countryside that the dragon is coming from. And they figure if the dragon's coming here, he's going to cross this river, and the river has carved out a gorge. So the dragon's going to have to cross over this gorge at some point.
So their idea is we're going to climb up the precipice of the gorge.
Yeah, they're going to go into the gorge and try to come out.
And we're going to try to get this motherfucker unawares.
From underneath.
Yeah, from underneath. And so they're so Dorlas he chickens out. He stops. He doesn't want to do it anymore. So he takes off.
Really comes down to it. He pussies out.
Yeah, and it's him and Hunthor, and they're climbing up the precipice, and Túrin almost falls. He loses his footing, and Hunthor grabs him and steadies him.
Being a faithful friend that he is. He is a good friend, kind of like Beleg.
But wouldn't you know it, as fate would have it, him steadying Túrin dislodged a rock, and it smote him on the head, and he fell down into the rivers below, never to be seen again.
The fact that he tried to help Túrin is exactly what killed him.
Yep. So this guy is so cursed that you can't even help him in the slightest way, because it'll kill you.
It'll kill you. Yeah. And now just another death that Túrin has to feel guilty about. Somebody that tried to save him and died simply because they tried to save him. And mind you, this is all happening at the moment that the dragon is crossing overhead. This is a dramatic moment. Like, it's come down to this. It was Túrin and Hunthor, like, in the crevice of this river, and the dragon's passing overhead, and they're going to try to do something. And then Hunthor saves Túrin, gets hit by a rock, and he falls and dies, and it's just Túrin left.
So it's Túrin alone. And so Túrin basically climbs up to the top, and he just buries that fucking blade in Glaurung's stomach.
All the way to the hilt, right?
All the way to the hilts, yeah. It said all the way to the hilts. And so Glaurung obviously starts freaking out. He starts spewing fire everywhere, just burns the entire top of this area that they're dealing with.
Yeah, he made it to the other side of the crevice, but obviously at the expense of getting a sword completely stabbed into him.
Mm-hmm. Gorthang, no less.
Yeah, the one that can cut through anything. Mm-hmm. Now, also, at the same time, the blood of Glaurung is just pouring down the sword down Túrin's arm. And the blood of a dragon isn't something you want to get on you, apparently.
No, yeah, it's very caustic and venomous. And so yeah, when Túrin goes to pull out this blade, he gets spurted with this black blood. And it causes him to come into a kind of swoon where he passes out, and his hand is all fucked up and burned and venomous. So he passes out in front of Glaurung as...
Yeah, he just is able to make it out of that crevice up to where Glaurung is also now resting on the ground injured, and they both kind of pass out there. Now, at this point, obviously the people of the Forest of Brethil knew that they were going to deal with this problem, and they haven't heard from him in a little while, so they start to get worried. And naturally, not many people want to go and check what's going on with this dragon, but Niniel, being in love with Túrin, insists.
She just can't bear to be apart from him, essentially. So she leads a small group of people along with Brandir the Lame, and they come up to this hill. At this point it's just Brandir and Niniel. They're by themselves, and they come up and see that the dragon is dead, or is seemingly dead. And so she goes over to Túrin. She thinks he's dead, but she also she dresses his hand.
Yeah, she starts to treat him. Obviously, she's found him, and he's on the ground unconscious, not doing well. She starts to treat him.
Yeah, so she tears off a piece of her cloak, binds up his hand, and then, wouldn't you know it, Glaurung speaks again.
Yeah, the cries of Niniel when she finds Túrin on the ground is enough to stir that fucking dragon back to life. Well, not from the dead, but just kind of, he comes back out of it once more before the end. And what does he do? But he tells Niniel, "It's nice to see you again, daughter of Húrin."
Daughter of Húrin, behold thy brother. Yeah, he says. And she's like, she starts putting two and two together. And she's like,
at that point, the curse on Findalis,
because the dragon,
or I'm sorry, the curse on Niniel falls off, and she remembers everything.
When Glaurung dies, at the moment he dies, his enchantment wears off, and she remembers fucking everything.
And she loses it. He says something towards the end too. He's like,
this is fucked up. He says Túrin's most evil deed is within thyself. And what he means by that is Niniel is pregnant with Túrin's child.
Yeah, Glaurung basically explains all this and how she fell in love with Túrin, the thankless, who doesn't care about anyone else, but the truest evil of Túrin she'll feel inside of herself, and it's because she's pregnant with Túrin's kid, and she just can't handle it at that point anymore.
She's completely distraught. She bids farewell to Túrin. She says goodbye, twice beloved, which I thought was so sad when she says that.
It's a beautifully tragic.
Twice beloved. It's like, it's tragic. And she finds her way over to the ridge overlooking the river, and she takes that flying leap, and she ends herself.
She throws herself in. So ultimately, her and Hunthor died of the same fate. They both fell into that river,
never to be seen again.
Never to be seen again.
Committed into the arms of Ulmo, the Lord of Waters.
Not pleasantly.
Yeah.
So at a point, Túrin wakes out of his poisonous.
Oh wait, we gotta cover this first. Remember Brandir, what Brandir does. So Brandir hears all that shit go down.
The coward.
Yeah, well the lame guy.
Okay.
Brandir, because he came with Niniel because he was in love with her.
Right.
Yeah. So he
Yes, he witnessed.
He witnessed all that happen. So he goes back to the rest of the people. First he finds Dorlas in the woods, the coward, and he kills him for being a coward. And then he goes back to the people and explains everything that's happened and says Turambar is dead, but it is good news because
he was cursed.
He was cursed, and all this evil shit happened to him, and Niniel was actually his sister, and like all that happened.
Yeah, so at this point, he's pretty much the only one that knows what's up at this point.
Yeah,
and
he's the only one that knows the truth, and he tries to tell everyone. They basically tell him that he's fucking crazy or whatever. And then, wouldn't you know it, Túrin, who has just recently woke up, basically finds these people, and they at first think he's they think he's an angry ghost.
Right, because they thought he was dead.
Yeah. They assumed that he had been killed.
So obviously, Brandir, seeing that Túrin is in fact alive, decides he should probably know everything that he heard from Glaurung the dragon. And so Brandir...
Well, because he says to the people, remember, the people shout out to him, and they're like, he said you were dead and said it was good news.
Oh, so he's Turin's
and
pissed off
so he
about
put
it.
him on the spot, and Túrin is all pissed off. He's like, "Oh, good tidings, huh?"
Yeah, and Brandir's whole like, well, hold on now, wait, you ought to hear this too.
Yeah, you ought to hear this too, man.
I was there when Niniel found you and Glaurung, and this is what Glaurung said. And, I mean, Túrin couldn't accept it.
No, he couldn't accept it as being real, and he assumed that it was Brandir because Brandir had been in love with Niniel, and he warned her against marrying Túrin time and time again because he just felt there was something off about it.
Yeah, Brandir knew.
Yeah, he knew that there was something off about it, and he was always like, "Wait, don't marry him. Just wait."
Kind of like how Dokes always knew that Dexter was a serial killer.
Right, exactly. He's the Dokes of the story. And
he got the shit end of the stick, just like Dokes.
Just like Dokes. And yeah, so he knows, and Túrin's so furious that he draws Anglekel, and he kills him.
Right there.
Right then and there.
Yeah.
In front of his own people. And then he is super pissed off, and he just leaves. He
doesn't even know what to do at this point. He's killed the men of Brethel's leader.
Yeah.
And all this crazy shit's happened with this dragon, and people are blaming it on him. He doesn't think it's his fault. But in a way it is, because he was there. Dragon was coming for him. So he doesn't even know what to do. So he actually starts to travel back to Doriath. He doesn't know what to do at this point. He starts to go back there. And on his way, he runs across Mablung.
Mablung the Heavy-Handed.
Now, Mablung, mind you, was with Morrowind and Niniel when they
got separated.
Yeah, when they initially went to go look for Túrin at Nargothrond. When Morrowind and Niniel left Doriath to go look for Túrin at Nargothrond, Mablung was there. So he knew what happened. He knew where they were. He knew that they ran into the dragon. And at this point, he knew pretty much everything that was going on.
And yeah, he told, and so Túrin's like, basically, yo, what's going on with my family? Where are they? They're supposed to be in Doriath. And they were like, yeah, they were in Doriath, but they left looking for you. And then they ran into the dragon and Finduilas, not Finduilas. Nienor was crazed and ripped her clothes off and ran through the woods, and we lost her.
Ran off into Brethel.
So Túrin at that point, as soon as he says that, like, that she was crazed and naked and didn't know how to speak and fucking left, and he puts two and two together that, holy shit, Niniel is in fact Nienor, my sister.
It's true.
It's true. So he again runs away, and they were like, so Mablung is like super happy to see Túrin, and he hasn't seen him in years, and he's glad to know he's alive and all this stuff. And then so he's basically like, wait, and Túrin's like, no, and he fucking runs off and goes finds some solitude.
Doesn't he go back to the site of where the dragon died?
Yes, yeah, he runs back to where the dragon died.
At this point, I mean, he's like running in circles. He doesn't even know what to do with himself. So he can no longer live with any of the stuff that's happened to him. I mean, he killed his best friend. Everything that he's done has ended up being for the worse. He's caused an entire kingdom to get sacked. He almost got an entire a band of men destroyed. He ended up marrying and impregnating his sister. Everything has gone bad for this guy.
Literally nothing has gone right, guys. And he's starting to feel it now.
Even after he thought it was all done and he was the master of his doom or his fate.
No, the worst was yet to come even.
Yeah, he was still in the middle of it, and he couldn't do it anymore. It was at this point that Túrin decided to kill himself. Now, mind you, this is not something that's common in Tolkien.
Yeah, there's a few characters throughout Tolkien that kill themselves, and it's always very. They always have a reason, like they always have a pretty damn good reason for why they do it. But these two characters are two of the only ones that ever commit suicide. There are some, but these are the most prominent, I would say. And then so this is what happened. Túrin draws Gorthang from its sheath, holds it up, and here's a little excerpt of what happened. Then Túrin said to Gorthang, "Hail, Gorthang, Iron of Death! Thou alone now remainest, But what lord or loyalty dost thou know, save the hand that wieldeth thee? From no blood wilt thou shrink. Wilt thou take Túrin Turambar? Wilt thou slay me swiftly? And from the blade rang a cold voice in answer. Yea, I will drink thy blood, that I may forget the blood of Beleg my master, and the blood of Brandir slain unjustly. I will slay thee swiftly. Then Túrin set the hilts upon the ground, and cast himself upon the point of Gurthang, and the black blade took his life. So endeth Túrin, son of Húrin, my favorite Tolkien character, by his own hand, by his own doom. Let's just take a moment of silence. Let's just let that set in for a second. Okay.
And it's not even quite done yet.
No, there's still a little bit left.
when the people of the men of the Forest of Brethil find him, they turn him over and they found that this crazy black sword that could cut through anything is actually broken.
Was broken underneath him.
And I don't know if they explicitly say why, but my theory is the only thing that could really break that blade is just pure sadness.
Sheer sadness. And the sheer sadness of the situation, in my opinion, the blade also gave up. The blade committed suicide as well. It was like, no, I'm not having any of this horrible shit anymore. I'm done. And it just broke. It willed, in my opinion, the blade willed itself to be broken out of the sheer despair of the situation.
So you could say that Túrin and
Túrin,
Gurthang.
Nienor, and Gurthang all kill themselves in this story. Yeah. Exactly.
Jesus. So at that point, they gather up the body of Túrin, and they actually bury his body right near Findulias, the woman he originally had tried to save years before, on a high mound. And that's also the mound where Túrin first found Nienor, his sister and wife. And there they put up a tombstone, and they set the shards of Gurthang, and they wrote on the tombstone, Túrin Turambar Dagnir Glaurunga, which means Túrin, master of fate, slayer of Glaurung. And beneath it they wrote Nienor Niniel, which both of her means mean mourning and tear maiden. Very appropriate. Now at this point, Húrin, Túrin's father, has been watching
that's
everything.
Right. This whole time.
That's the
we
only
had a guy
thing.
watching this.
The only thing Húrin's been doing
is
for
watching.
years is watching this. And at this point, after the death of his family, he's actually released from Angband. I don't know if I've ever heard of anyone else being released from Angband.
No,
because
he was like, I've done all I can do to you, bro. Like, essentially, like, you're broken now. Here you go. He just fucking released him. Yeah.
So after watching the horrible lives and deaths of his family, the father, Húrin, finally gets released, and I don't even know what I would do if I was him at this point. He starts to travel back south.
Of course, yeah, that's really the only way to go. I guess we'll go south.
On his way, he actually attempts to enter Gondolin.
Yeah, he tries to find Gondolin because he knows generally where it is, but doesn't really know how to get in there.
And if there's anyone that he wants to talk to about what the fuck has been going on,
is
Turgon, the last king of the Noldorian elves. So he more or less gets near Gondolin in the general mountain range, and he can't find it, and he screams and he yells and curses Turgon, asking and trying to get in. Nothing happens, though.
But what does happen is, wouldn't you know it, Morgoth has been watching Túrin after he left him.
Yeah, he sent some spies.
And he knows that he went to this specific region, cried out Turgon's name, so he says, hey, I bet Gondolin's near here. So that was the first time that So, and that's what they say might have been the evilest of all of Húrin's deeds, is that he eventually, in some small way, betrayed Gondolin.
Yeah,
without even really knowing.
Yeah, he
it.
unwillingly revealed the location or the general location of hidden Gondolin to Morgoth, and that we're not even going to actually touch on that this episode. That's going to come to fruition in our next episode. That's no good right there. And so from there, Húrin travels down to Brethil, where he knows everything that's happened. He knows that that's where his 2 kids ended up in the end. And he goes to their graves. He's a father.
What do you do, right?
Right, what do you do? He's a father who's had a pretty horrible life for the past who knows how many years, watching his kids' horrible lives and their deaths. He goes to their graves. But while he goes to visit the grave of Túrin and Ninio, who does he happen to meet at their grave?
An old woman, old but beautiful, clad in gray. Gee, I wonder who this could be. But Morwen of the House of Beor, his wife.
His wife, Túrin and Ninio's mother, who had disappeared years and years prior in that big cloud of mist at Nargothrond with the dragon. This is the first time we see her since then, and they meet up, Húrin and his wife, at the grave of their children.
Mm-hmm. And he and she essentially, they kind of just like, I mean, what else would you do? They just kind of cuddle. They just lay on the ground and they lay against the gravestone.
They recognize each other.
And and they just kind of take each other in their arms. And
neither of them are doing well. They're both very old and decrepit.
And she basically asks Húrin, like, do you know what happened to our children? And he doesn't really answer.
He doesn't say anything at all.
He doesn't say anything at all.
Literally, he does not answer her question, and moments later, she dies.
Morwen dies.
Not knowing what happened, which is a mercy to her.
Right, the fact that he didn't let her in on all that shit just before she would have killed herself too. Like,
but I mean,
why
would you even want to tell her
at that point?
Like,
yeah, it's not helping anybody.
No, and he's just sitting here bearing all of this the whole time. Yeah, yeah. This is why we got drunk at the beginning, guys. Yeah, it gets heavy. Now at this point, yes, it continues. Húrin is done, and he travels to Nargothrond. I guess he's just kind of revisiting all the things that happened through his kid's life. He goes to visit the sacked kingdom of Nargothrond, and who does he find there?
But fucking Mime, the petty dwarf.
And he knows everything that
he
Mime
knows
did.
about Mime.
He saw everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he finds Mime going and ravaging through the plunders of Nargothrond and all the treasures that were left there.
Which were only left there because his fucking kid had killed the dragon that left all the shit there.
Right.
Oh, I'd be furious. I'd be so furious.
And he basically confronts Mime and kills him in Nargothrond.
Slays him.
Mime doesn't know who he is, but he basically reveals himself and says, I know who you are, and I know exactly what happened and what betrayed my son Túrin Turambar. And at that point, Mime shrieks and tries to run, and he kills him.
Slays him. And so he starts, he goes to look through this treasure, and he finds what he deems the thing of most value from the treasure.
Because he has one last thing he's trying to do.
Because he's got one last
fuck
thing he's
you
trying
that
to
he
do.
wants to throw.
Yeah, he's got one last fuck you, and he's about to do it. So he picks out this piece of treasure that he thinks is totally great. And he's like, all right, got some guy to see. Who is it but King Thingol? So he heads his ass over to Doriath to meet King Thingol. And this is one of my favorite scenes. Is he takes what the treasure, what we know to be called the Nauglamir, which is
the Nauglamir,
which is the necklace of the dwarves, which we talked a little bit about.
We talked a lot about last.
We talked a shitload
in the
about
Baron and Luthien
in the
episode.
Baron and
Yeah,
Luthien episode.
the
We talked about the
Nauglamir
Nauglamir.
is very important. Thingol, when he gets
and that's how he got it. We didn't mention
Yeah.
how he got it, but
no,
this is how he gets it.
This is how he gets it.
Húrin throws it at his feet and says, "This is payment for the safekeeping of thy wife and daughter."
Oh, yeah, here's for the safekeeping of my family.
Of my
Thanks.
family, yeah. And then he throws it at his feet. And so one last fuck you.
I mean, Thingol's also he's a good guy. Like, despite the issues that Thingol had, with Baron and Luthien, I actually really like Thingol as a character. He's a stand-up guy.
I kind of like him. He's got some serious flaws, but yeah, I like him.
I like him. He's got some pretty serious flaws, but he's no fucking Finrod Felagund, okay?
Right? Yeah, nobody is. Nobody
but
is Finrod.
he's still a good guy, and he's not getting pissed off at this obvious insult because he knows what's happened to Húrin's family, and he's like, "Hey man, like, you got to understand, like, this isn't anything any of us could have helped." And Húrin wasn't listening to him, and finally someone steps in. It's Melian the Maya. She steps in and she speaks to Húrin and explains to him, even after the death of your children, all of your deeds so far have done nothing but continued to aid Morgoth. And that, something about her magic and what she said finally broke through to Húrin.
And that kind of just, like, he snapped a little bit. Like, he knew that, like, not only had his whole life, like, since he'd been captured, his children's, all of their lives had been, they've been pawns in this game of that Morgoth has been playing.
Thanks to him.
And then at the same time, he realizes that since he has been released, everything he's done only helped out Morgoth.
Right.
He probably realizes at this moment that he might have betrayed Gondolin.
Yeah,
he maybe thinks about that.
They might have. I would speculate that he probably did. They don't specifically
say that, but I imagine that he understood in that moment. And so all this understanding coming crashing down on Húrin, he leaves Doriath and he heads out to the coast and he casts himself into the sea and ends his life.
And so ends the line
Húrin the Steadfast.
So ends the whole line of Húrin.
Yeah, the ruling line of the House of Hador has been wiped out.
That's the end.
That's the end of the story, guys.
Yeah. That's it.
That's all we have for you. Go home.
Go home. There's no post-credit. Well, actually, there is actually kind of a cool. It's not a post-credit scene.
You should totally read this to
So that's the end of the story. There is in our research we found something. It wasn't actually, this bit of information isn't included in the canon of the Silmarillion. Obviously, Christopher Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien's son, when he put this stuff together, not everything was official and cohesive. So he had to choose things to include and things to leave out. Now, one of the things that Christopher Tolkien decided to leave out of the canon of the Silmarillion was something called the Second Prophecy of Mandos. Now, basically what it talks about is the end times that prophesies at the end of the world. Morgoth comes back. He finds a way to get through the Gate of Night? The Door of Night. He finds a way to come back from the emptiness of the void, and there's going to be, like one final Armageddon. And in this Armageddon, in the final battle against Morgoth, there is going to be a few people that actually battle Morgoth hand to hand, and the one that actually deals the final blow that's going to kill Morgoth is prophesied to be the reincarnate Túrin Turambar, who will plunge Gorthang into Morgoth's heart and finally defeat him once and for all, exterminating evil forever, and finally avenging the Children of Húrin.
Yeah, and that's something that was never... So that's not part of canon. Wouldn't it be nice, though?
I thought it was cool. That was really cool. I mean, Tolkien wrote that. It was an idea that Tolkien had.
Yeah. No, I'm just...
But ultimately, the final version of things, I guess Christopher thought that J.R.R. didn't actually want to include that in the final version, so he cut it out. But I thought that was really cool. That would have been satisfying, right?
Right.
Because if anybody got fucked over by Melkor...
Túrin has been fucked over by far
his
the worst.
whole life.
His whole life. Everything he's
Literally.
ever done. Like, yeah. And that's why I love Túrin so much, guys. And, like, this character's really close to my heart just because... Have you ever felt that, like, in your lifetime when a lot of things are going wrong in your life that you're cursed? And, like, there's somebody out there that's just making it the worst for you? Like, that's why I heavily identify with Túrin.
He's a wonderful character.
Yeah, and like Trevor actually said in our next episode, he's kind of a dick, huh? And it's like, well, yeah, a little bit. He's stubborn.
But it's because he's human.
But it's because he's human, exactly, and he's prideful, which is like, and he has every reason to be proud. He's son of Húrin the Steadfast, for Christ's sake.
He proves himself over and over again.
And like he's also the son of Morwen, who's supposed to be the most beautiful woman, mortal woman to ever exist. So Túrin is like, he's huge, he's strong, he's a sexy guy. He's got a lot of good things going for him, but just every bad thing in the world seems to happen to this guy. And there's nothing he can do to change it.
But he's badass nonetheless. I mean, aside from impregnating his sister. Not that he knew that.
Not cool.
Not cool. We're definitely not condoning incest.
No.
We're just saying, for as much as Túrin Turambar knew, he did pretty well. He did all right.
Yeah, and that's what's really fucked up about the whole story is, like, the time he was at his happiest is when he did essentially his most evil deed.
Right.
And that's what Morgoth, like, knew and wanted.
Yeah, I think that was like the icing on the shit cake. What he knew was going to lead up to. All achieved through his pawn, Glaurung the dragon.
And fuck Glaurung, I'm glad he's dead.
Yeah, no kidding. It was about time, man.
Yeah.
But that's all we've got for you today, guys.
Yeah, guys. So hopefully this isn't the happiest... Hopefully there are happier moments in your day than listening to this podcast.
Nonetheless, we hope you enjoyed it.
We hope you enjoyed it. But
you should probably sit down for a drink after this, too.
Yeah, have a drink. Be with the ones you love. You know.
No, don't have sex with your sister.
Yeah, just don't.
Just be aware of who your family members are.
Yes, be aware. Keep track of them. Because that's what happens when you don't. Well, I guess that's it for us, guys. We had a good time talking about this. This is
one of our favorites.
Yeah, this is definitely my favorite tale. Yeah, we're super happy to bring you Children of Húrin, guys.
Next episode, we're going to be talking about the third of the three major tales of the First Age, and that is going to be a story on Huor's son. We just talked about the Children of Húrin. Húrin's brother being Huor's son.
He also had a son. About around the same time.
And his story is pretty major as well. We're going to get to that next time. But thanks again, guys.
But yeah, thanks so much. And read the book, guys. The Children of Húrin, it came out in 2008, so it was one of the later works of Tolkien. It's so fleshed out compared to the version that's in the Silmarillion.
It's very complete. It's beautiful.
Very, very complete. And also, if you can, guys... The audiobook is read by none other than Christopher friggin' Lee.
Do it.
And he's amazing. The voice he does, like, oh God, it's so good. And his Elvish, just when he was like Aure and Tulua, it was fucking amazing, dude. Oh yeah, it's great.
Check it out.
Check it out, guys. Take care. This is Keep on Tolkien. I'm Danny J.
This is Joel N, and as always, keep on Tolkien, guys.
Keep on Tolkien.